Hey, I lost my content. I recorded in the car using a power bank, and I thought that I could just keep it going, but it appears the power bank was not powerful enough, and I had spoken for like half an hour. I'd spoken for like half an hour, and after this phone just switched off, the content was gone. So I'm inside. I prefer to record from outside because I don't like the background here. But I've put a pillow behind me so I can just get this message out the way. Because really, quite frankly, emotionally, I'm literally out of it. Okay? Yeah, anyway, let me just try and reiterate whatever it is under heaven that I was talking about before I got abruptly crushed by whatever was going on with the power bank. I believe I ended by communicating how it is that when I was working as a project manager for consumer marketing, yes, I used to covet the jobs of people in marketing, and because, like I told you, I was not very happy with being a project manager. I was just overseeing. I wanted to be a subject matter expertise, but the particular department in marketing that I was attracted to was not so much just the general creative atmosphere that marketing was, but I wanted to be in an environment that was, yet again, helpful and impactful. I was drawn to analytics in particular, and insights, like the team that would diagnose, like they were into diagnostics, essentially. They used to diagnose needs. I really am working really hard to make sure that my background is literally invisible because I hate this place. Yeah, I was drawn in particular to the team that was into diagnostics, like the guys that would spot an issue, make recommendations as to what needs to happen next, and then embark on a methodology to effect it. But remember, I told you guys that I was a little bit immature and I was just gunning for money, growth, and the prospect of starting again from scratch used to eat me whole. It used to eat me alive. I frankly preferred to be maintained in the job level that I was at, earning the same salary, however, moving departments. I could not take that in my stride, so I didn't even inquire. I didn't ask. The guy who was running that department, I could have spoken to him because every so often he was around in my projects, like the senior manager for that team, right? I could have, but he would have probably, if at all, he would be happy if he would have been happy to see me. He would have probably been like, but you don't have any experience. You're gonna have to start from a certain place. Also, the prospect of having to reignite my career, like basically change my course again at university for the job, not the job, but the career or academic track that I was on was taxing. I did actually take up marketing in the very last year when I was at Viz. I did take up marketing subjects because I did want to transfer over, but the space within marketing that I wanted to be part of was within, like I said, analytics, right? But yeah, everything was snuffed out. I was cut short, dead in my tracks. Did people end what I was doing? Do you understand what I'm doing? What I'm saying? So I literally, all the things that I was thinking about very deeply, never could I have ever gotten them answered. I did go to God and ask him, like, once I got born again, remember, before I was just entering into careers because it is what it is. It's going to make me money. Project management was lucrative. It had a promising track in the future, but I was never happy. I could never be an SME, and I wanted to be an SME. And the biggest reason I wanted to be an SME was because there is just so much in being able to help people, to be effective, to be relevant, to be loved, to be wanted, to be needed, and to be able to transform something and make it better. I really did not feel like I could do much of that. There was very limited room for innovation in project management, and that made me frazzled. I was quite frustrated. Even though I did deal with people and what have you, I just didn't feel like I was helping sufficiently enough. And I also sometimes low-key felt kind of patronized by the subject matter experts on my projects. Sometimes would like flat out lie to me about what is going on because they knew that I wouldn't know any better, or they would underestimate me or stuff like that. Anyway, whatever, it was frustrating being a project manager. So with me then looking into this particular department in marketing, MTN, because it was going through some changes, they brought in some consultants from Deloitte, and my heart resonated so much with those consultants, you guys. You see, the thing about a consulting firm is that so first and foremost, I had been pretty much ever since I became a project manager trying to get into McKinsey. I had been trying to get into a consulting firm. I wanted in, but they would not even see me because I was yet to get my degree and I didn't have enough years. But I had told myself that if I had, the more years that I was working, employed as a project manager, the more feasible it would become for me to apply again and again. I applied so many times at that company, like just keep on trying. Every year I would try, and every year they would reject me, but every year I would keep trying, and I was going to keep trying until I got in. The reason I wanted to move to consulting, to McKinsey, was because of my observation of the consultants from Deloitte that were there, and also the team in marketing that did analytics. They dug up insights in the company. They basically scanned the environment. They were into diagnostics, which is why I keep saying I was always supposed to help people. I've always been just besotted with helpy type fields of study, and inquisitive, discovering fields of study. I loved biology as a kid. I need to keep checking my battery liner because last time I lost content. I used to love biology as a child in school. I thought I could do biochemistry. I thought I could enter into medicine, but I didn't like the whole blood and gore and sorrow of people thing that I would have to constantly witness as a doctor. So that became a no-brainer. I chose the wrong careers, but everywhere where it is that I worked, where I helped people, I was always very satisfied with my job, even if the salary was not that high. Proved later on in life as I studied at Wits that, man, what is this? Money is not a motivator. And I realized the reason why I wasn't motivated by an increase in salary or a job that gave me a whole chunky, legroom budget. It never ever worked to make me feel better. I was always feeling happy in environments where I felt like I could impact an ecosystem and change people's lives. And the team in marketing that I was drawn to was into changing people's lives. By people's lives, I mean the company was benefited. It was improved by their recommendations, their insights. It's like they put their ears to the ground and they listened, basically, by putting their ears to the ground, diagnosed the potential issues, type a team to be able to cause a project to stop midway because they have discovered midway that it's not going to be profitable, it's not going to be lucrative. Being able to have your ear in the ground like that and then recommend the next steps, and so therefore save a situation from ending badly. Yeah, I was drawn to such environments as those because I've always been drawn to that. Just a solutions management type thing, like a diagnostics with a prescription type environment, which is why medicine was so attractive to me, but I couldn't quite do medicine for the reasons I've highlighted above. Biochemistry was attractive. It was all about fixing people's problems. That's just always been a thing with me. So I was drawn to that department because of that. The consultants at Deloitte, also, my heart resonated with theirs. I loved listening to their presentations. I loved watching. Basically, their work was just a marvel for me to look at. That's why I wanted to get into McKinsey, but I couldn't quite, right? Yeah, but I was working to go there. I was building these skills, and because I had taken to God in prayer, I don't know if I highlighted that, I did pray to God for a purpose. Okay, so once I got saved, of course, I was all about the business of evangelizing. But I did seek when I came to the Lord, I discovered that it was possible to pray about disquiet in a space, that life is not just about going through the modes. It's not just about earning a salary and that's it. It's not just about, it's about impact, man, just making a difference. Yeah, that's what life is about. So stop trying to get a career or a job that's just going to make you money. You're never going to have job satisfaction. You need something that's going to truly resonate with you. Which is why I believe I mentioned this and that was not cut out. I was drawn to law for those reasons, but in particular, it was human rights law that I was interested in. I was drawn to biochemistry. I was drawn to medicine, the prospect of it, biology as a subject in school. I was drawn to fields or jobs where it is that I was helping people, getting them from one place of sorrow, want, lack, need, and solution effected later, which is why I loved claims consulting and which is why I loved training, right? And in project management, all that was very vacuous. It was hollow, but it was the highest paying job that I ever had. And it had great prospects in the future, right? I took it to God, realized that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Many who have wandered after it have pierced themselves with many pains. I prayed. I was like, God, I'm not happy. You can see that. Also in school, I just keep studying these subjects that, yeah, I'm passing, but I'm not really into it. I'm not really into it, and I don't even know what to do. I believe I might have mentioned the fact that I did study psychology and I enjoyed it, but it was not quite the full deal. Something about it was halfway. It was half baked. It was where I needed to be, but it was half baked. And I just had that intrinsic knowledge, that an intrinsic understanding that the field of psychology would give me a half baked solution. I knew it was half baked. I just knew before salvation. I just knew. And I highlighted in an earlier part that psychologists or theorists in this particular space, in the science or pseudoscience, some would call it, they are unsung theorists, or not theorists, theists. They are in denial theists. They are theologians that don't want to acknowledge God. I've said that multiple times, and in my former videos, you would have to go into them you would be able to gauge that message. Okay, yeah, type setup thing. So because I knew that psychology was something half-baked, I did not finish it off once I returned to school to study part-time type thing. I wasn't able to do law because Wits did not offer it. So I was just stuck with all of these subjects within my BCom that I would choose and just feel like every year what to do, but I just kept changing my majors. I kept changing my majors, which is why I studied for so long, because something was just not giving. I was just not, yeah, but anyway, I studied. That's why I have such a broad spectrum of knowledge concerning multiple fields, multiple academic areas. It's because I kept changing my majors, okay, subjects, yeah, type establishment thing. In my last year at Wits, it wasn't my last year, it was never going to be my last year, but in other words, the last year that I was able to be there, because people kicked me out of everything. Yeah, I did take up marketing because I had a new interest in marketing, but it wasn't actually marketing that I was interested in. It was the analytics department within marketing. Diagnostics. I've always just been about diagnostics, and then these consultants from Deloitte rocked up, and my heart was just resonating with theirs. Okay, I longed and loved what it is that they did, but I could not quite get in. I couldn't pierce through, and Mackenzie was just locking doors for me all over the show. I was in particular focused on Mackenzie for whatever reason, and they just wouldn't see me. Okay, very well, but I was going to work until finally they answered my call. Okay, I was going to strive, but then my career pulled right a rug underneath my feet. They just took everything away from me before I could even do anything. Okay, very well. So what is this? That's when I did also mention, did I? Issue I lost content, and that's just really very grieving because I already spoke this like at length. Within firms like Mackenzie, the reason why I was drawn, consulting firms, basically management consulting firms, is that their consultants very rarely ever are just project managers. Very rarely ever are just business analysts. Very rarely ever are they just change managers. Very rarely ever are they just solutions architects or whatever, okay, it is that they need. Very rarely ever are they just auditors. They tend to just jam pack them with training that makes them jacks of all trades and masters of all. They are these superhumans, do you understand? Like literally they've got superpowers. Consultants have got superpowers. They can do any job. And that's why I wanted desperately to enter into that field, because I want that market, that particular job atmosphere, because I saw that I could go somewhere where I would basically be set up for success in the future in an environment where it is that I could morph like a chameleon, and also be of service in a way that is fluid and ever changing without necessarily having to move from company to company or job to job. I could be all these things in one fell sweep insofar as I could get into a consulting firm. I knew that they offered themselves as a service provider to companies who need them for whatever reason. If a company is presently choking or having a little bit of a heart condition, consultants come in and they diagnose. They recommend a course of action, a treatment course, and then they recommend what it is that needs to be treated, and then they also recommend or put forward steps to effect this thing with granular detail. So we are speaking here, offering change, and then after they have effected this change, they then enable the adoption of their recommended solution to the company, following which they then exit and say, I hope you guys are good, right? Yeah, I loved that about what I came to learn was ultimately management consulting. Just a plethora, rocking up as a skill in a company to listen with a stethoscope. What is the issue? Diagnose it, right? Following which you would then come up with a treatment protocol and a strategy to effect recovery. I wanted to be somebody that could help a company not have to close shop. I think I've finally explained myself there. Took a while to get to the conclusion, but I prayed to God asking for purpose. In terms of the gospel, I already had a blog. I was writing, and I had big dreams for proliferating the message of peace. I wrote in it almost every single day. And in the office, I would evangelize colleagues. And in terms of a career, I saw the Lord's face. I was like, Father, help me work a job that I'm going to love, that is going to be aligned with my interests and my passions, and somewhere where it is that I'm not going to feel like I am gasebeza, you know. It must just come naturally, flow naturally through me, because I can't be a project manager for the rest of my life. Like I can't. It's got a lucrative career. It's got a lucrative future, in the sense that project managers can earn a handsome salary, right? But I will always just be frustrated. I want to be an SME. I want to be an SME. What is the core thing that I love? What is the thing that would make me feel like here I'm right at home? What's going to make me feel right as rain in any ecosystem? And I came to discover that it is anywhere where it is that diagnostics is a thing, right? Listening to the on the ground to hear for a fluke of flaw, something that others aren't quite able to spot, something that other people cannot spot, and yet you have a knack for it. You are a penchant in that particular area. You are gifted at spotting that which others just can't see. And in so being that thing, you are able to, upon diagnosing it, then also recommend a course for action, treatment. I've always been desirous of humanitarian-like jobs, even within a very commercial corporate space. If at all it enabled a collective of people, it was always what I was trying to do. And I threw myself in project management, which could be supportive to people insofar as you know what you're doing, right? But it was too much of an oversight for me. I wanted to be down on the ground, getting my hands dirty with the stethoscope, listening for an issue. I couldn't get that with project management. I couldn't. And it was very taxing for me. It was not enough for me to merely be in marketing and be within this creative environment and be very excited and happy to market. It wasn't about marketing. It was about, like I said, diagnostics, analytics, insights gathering, and a recommendation of a treatment course. Any career that could give me that linear solving protocol for a day-to-day job was perfect. And I discovered that job within the realm of corporate was management consulting. I wanted to be, that's why I was drawn to McKinsey the way that I was. I wanted to be a management consultant. I eventually arrived at that space. I got there. Yo, it's hard. You know, kids, when they are in school, they get asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? A doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a fireman. Largely, they don't even know what on the one that heaven they want, but they just feel like that's what they need to say. Yeah. Well, when I came to Christ, I discovered that you can ask God that, because he's the one that knit you together in your mother's womb, and you are fearfully and wonderfully made. In his image did he create you, and he knows what purpose you're called for. He knows you very particularly uniquely. Every single hair on your head is counted by him. He understands your DNA. He has manufactured you. He made you. He built you. He created you. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's God. Hallelujah. And if at all, one who knows you so particularly that he knit you together in your mother's womb, bringing you together with DNA from a man and a woman that ultimately produces you, unique individual with unique fingerprints, how much better then is it? How much better then is it to, instead of asking a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? How much better is it to ask God, what do you want my child to be when she grows up? You know, and when that child then comes to comprehension or knowledge of God, him or herself, then saying, God, what do you want me to be? Because whatever God wants you to be, you can never hate it. He made you, he fashioned you, he gave you passions. He's the one that gave you loves and desires. He's the one that caused you to have interests, likes, dislikes, and what do you call this? Tendencies towards certain things and retractions from others. He's the one that causes you to gel with certain atmospheres and not quite sit right in your heart with others. He's the one that creates disquiet and also a total peace concerning an ecosystem, because he's the one that gives you or fashions your personality, the intrinsic and extrinsic parts of you, the very inwardmost deep parts of you he knows, and even the most shallow, you know, he gets it. So when I came to him, I realized that, I can get this right finally. No more studying things that I just feel like, okay, it's gonna make me money. I mean, at some point, I was literally charting a course. I was trying to graduate in corporate finance. Yo, guys, I literally could not stomach it when I was studying it. But I wanted to take it all the way to the end. Corporate finance, investments, advanced finance. I was just gonna do that because, duh, like that's gonna make you money. I even considered the CFA track, Certified Financial Analyst. For what? Like, for what? Well, I remembered in high school, we had these consultants from, I think it was KPMG, that came to speak to us, giving us, kids that were basically studying maths and accounting and science and biology, like kids in that particular academic course. They sat us all down in front of these consultants from KPMG and grade 11 or matric, and they spoke about the earning potential of these careers, and it was just so lofty. It was so lofty, and they spoke about how you can either be a chartered accountant or a certified financial analyst or this and that, and it motivated and inspired me to want to go that route for no other reason than the fact that, whoa, so much money can be made over here. So much money can be made over here. But then again, a lot of money can also be made in actuarial science. A lot of money can also be made in medicine. A lot of money can, so where must you go really at this point? So I thought very deeply about going the CFA route because I wanted money but I wanted to make money, but yes, like it, y'all, I hated accounting. I hated it. Like from grade 10, I don't even know why I took it as a subject. I should have probably taken business, what do you call this? Business economics. I should have taken business economics instead of accounting. I was happy with science. I was happy with maths and biology, but accounting, I hated accounting. But I took it because I thought that was what we were supposed to do if we were clever, if we were smart, if we were going to make money, broaden your horizons, especially considering you didn't have to take accounting if you wanted to become an accountant. It wasn't a requirement at university, but I took it anyway because it came highly recommended. But here it is that I was chilling at varsity, having barely scraped through accounting 1 because I couldn't stand it. And when you don't love something, you're going to struggle to pass. I mean, y'all need to understand, I could have totally been a straight A student at school if I had chosen the right subject set. That's what I'm getting at. Like, the subjects that I did really well at are the ones that I absolutely was besotted with. But others, I studied like night before. I dragged myself through the mud. I was just rocking up, man, because I gotta do this. But one thing that is certain is that I loved chemistry and not so much physics. It was strange that way. That's why maybe I shouldn't just say science. Let me say chemistry. I loved chemistry the moment we found it out. I adored algebra. I adored biology was my favorite subject in school, which is why I literally thought in my mind when I was still in high school that I could totally be a biochemist. I was right. It was something that dwelled in me richly as a child. I knew, but I still went that commerce track. I knew that I couldn't do medicine because of my queasy nature, how squeamish I was, but I would not have been too bad off with biochemistry. Actually, no, I'm not really sure, because I have a thing about, I wouldn't have survived. I have a thing about stuff under a microscope and a scope and how gross it is. I have a thing about squeamishness, man, so certain professions or certain careers would have been challenging for me for no other reason than the fact that I was not quite made for the squeamish, right? But I was onto something with biochemistry. I was onto something with medicine. I was onto something with with chemistry. I was onto something. I was onto something, but I ignored all that. I left it behind. Went to corporate, worked this very commercial job, like nothing of the humanitarian side of it was applicable even in the slightest, but certain jobs enabled me to touch human beings in ways that were really, really reaching and impactful, and I was happy even though I wasn't earning very much there. So basically, if I could do away with the stuff that makes me vomit, and if I could do away with if I could do away with the stuff with what makes me vomit, but keep the helping of people, I would be okay. If I could still work somewhere where it is that I was helping people and I was significantly improving their lives, but without seeing their blood, I was good. What in the world is that? That's why I was drawn to human rights law. It's why I was drawn to that job as a claims consultant. That's why I loved it. That's why I loved training. But now here it is that I'm a project manager, and I'm looking at this analytics team in marketing, and I'm digging what they do. I love the work that these consultants from Deloitte are doing at MTN. I resonate with them. They're like peas in a pod, birds of a feather. They are these unsung heroes that I'm looking at, right? That don't even recognize just how much they're inspiring me. And I feel frustrated that I'm locked out of a space that I belong to because, I don't yet have my degree. I don't have enough years of experience, and McKinsey doesn't want to see me. And at the time, I was obsessed with McKinsey because I didn't study any other consulting firm. Okay, very well. My love for management consulting started there. Even though I'd get to enter into the industry, I figured with project management, eventually, I will garner for myself enough years to get in there. Eventually. I knew I was eventually going to get in, and if not through McKinsey, somebody else out there, maybe even not Deloitte. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, I wait, but I prayed, and God opened up my eyes. He is the one who knits me together, remember, in my mother's womb. I prayed to him, and I'm like, Lord, you know my issues. You remember me from high school all the way back in the day. You remember Okuti Njani. I'm not happy here. I'm not sad either. I'm not broken. I'm not devil. I don't hate my job, but I also don't love it. It would be great if I didn't have to stay in a career that is just going to be something that I'm going through. You said in your word that whatever we do, we must work heartily as unto the Lord. You know how hard it is for me to work heartily when I don't love something. God, I'm just being honest with you. You know how in school I had this weird report card. Even with my academic transcript at WITS, it's weird. It's weird. The only description I can give my academic transcript is weird. Why? Because in certain parts of my academic transcript, you would think I'm an average or even an underperformer student. And in certain other parts of my academic transcript, I've got trophies, I've got rewards, I've got stars. I would have like proper. I have a weird academic, like not just my academic transcript at Wits, but also my report at school. One part there would be like an 93% for something, and then another part I'm sitting on like 42%. It's not that I can't study, and it's not that I don't know how to pass really well. It's just that I struggle to invest effort in something that I'm not feeling. And it came through in school, and it also came through in corporate. It came through so much. It came through. I did a video where I was speaking about my experiences under certain bosses, and how it is that one boss called me a still quiet lake in one portion and a violent volcano in another, because I'm on and off. I'm really super excellent in one portion, and then another you would think that I'm just dropping the ball. I said to God, you know that I'm like that. You know that I've got a little bit of a bipolar way of being academically as well as professionally. And this here bipolar is not going to work. If at all, I'm going to be taken seriously professionally in the future. It's the reason even why it is that I've got so many, I keep skipping from job to job. It's because of the bipolar. Like with the job where I was a claims consultant, I loved what is it I was doing, but I didn't have the money. It was this call center environment. It was and my boss was also giving me, there's always just been something that caused a bipolar situation where it is that I could not be the fullness of what it is that I wanted to be. And I sought the Lord's face to improve those circumstances. Let me save this, because this here filter and video editing, this camera, it gives me problems sometimes. Very well. I took it to God, and I was like, Lord, you know that I can you know that if when it calls for it, if at all I were to be given something that really is my heart, you know that I would slay anything and everything in these streets. You know what a David I am to Goliath structures when it comes to passions. You know that I can walk into any industry, any shoe, any environment, and if I'm filling the space, everybody that's been there for 10 years is going to be uncomfortable with my presence. You know the potential to excel that I have. And you said in your word that whatever we do, we must do it heartily as unto you, and work hard. And whether we eat or drink, we must do it all for your glory. You also know how hard it is for me to strive and excel in something that it's like I'm just gathering dust, man. In my heart, it's not quite catching. It's not like blackjacks on wool. You know. So for the sake of my soul, and for the sake of my hard work, so I'm not so bipolar, underperforming in certain parts because I just don't care to put any effort into that. Please give me something that's going to make me soar like a bird, because I'm so feeling it. I sought the Lord's face. I continued to work my job and whatnot. And slowly but surely, Jesus brought all these cues, these hints in my path. From the time that I prayed that prayer, he brought the cues in my path. I worked with resources on my projects whose jobs I low-key coveted. I wanted their jobs. I was disquieted with my lack of subject matter expertise in project management. And I used to admire and long for the jobs of my colleagues that were reporting into my projects. So my business analysts, my segment managers, the people that were basically resources on my projects that I was leading. I liked their jobs so much that I was just so unhappy with where it is that I found myself, until ultimately the team, the analytics team of marketing, how it is even that I happened upon what they in particular do was because of the changes that MTN was making. And with the changes that were being made, they brought consultants in from Deloitte. My boss would ask me to sit in on some of the meetings where it is that these consultants were doing work, because I was a project manager on these marketing projects. And these ladies and dudes would start speaking and presenting and sharing their insights, working together with the team from marketing that is into also insights. And just the combination was like, it was so awe-inspiring. It was so awe-inspiring for me to listen to these people speak and watch their job. And I was like, this is it. This is it. And upon saying this is it, I, of course, I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I wished I was a consultant like these two. These people that were busy doing that. And the job inside MTN that was similar to theirs. I then started to kind of look at it closely. I then started to volunteer attending these meetings, because as a project manager, you get to not eavesdrop, what is the word that I'm looking for? Just sort of kind of bum a ride in whatever meetings that are relevant to your project. You can just go, just rock up and be like a fly on the wall, because hey, this is linked to my project. So instead of just letting them have their own, team meeting and then come and report to you. You could totally just impose. And I did that. I started to impose and rock up in these meetings. They were not disquieted by my presence because, like I said, I was their project manager. So they were like, oh, Karabo, hi. And nice to see you. Welcome. And then I would just sit there and listen. And I was like, this is it. This is it. But I didn't have enough time because, I was sabotaged. The rug was pulled from underneath my feet. I didn't have enough time to try and negotiate for my own space with the people inside the company. Neither stay in the job long enough to gather experience so I can finally get into McKinsey. I was kicked out. Earlier I came and I was like, guys, akale kopa mosebetsi. Hakale kopa mosebetsi. Akale kopa hore leng hire. Ne ke na le ona mosebetsi la nkoba. La nkosta career kaofela. La dula morago, and you sat back and did nothing about my pain. And now these years down the line, nifunugu like you wanna unanswer prayer that was answered at some point. Le batla ho unanswer dithapelo tsaka. Utlwelang. One core passion and one core desire has always just dwelt in my heart, the service of humanity. That's just been something developed as a child that I could not quite shake. I pursued the wrong paths because ne ke batla tjhelete, ne ke sa tsebe Modimo. But as soon as I learned God, He taught me how to desire. And then I started to desire as I was aligned to desire by the Holy Spirit, by God, by the one who created me. It's a deeply rooted ontological issue, this one. It's about form, it's about nature. My nature is like this. Mara this time around it's also mixed with all this trauma, severity of pain, shock. With all of this pain, how much worse am I going to be then in a job esang tshwaneling, a job eke sa batleng eke rapelletseng hore Modimo mpholose from yona, rescue me from this job. I needed rescuing from my own folly. God has come to set the captives free. Do you understand? I was a captive to recommendations by the earth, the world. Sir John Adamson, here comes all these accountants from KPMG, and they talk about how wonderful their profession is, and I'm like, maybe I'll go that route. I don't want to be an accountant. I hated the subject. But I took it all the way to matric because I was recommended to do it. I took corporate finance and investment in university, and I barely scraped through those subjects because, I barely escaped because my heart was not in it. I went to a CFA conference once upon a time as it came highly recommended by a lecturer at WITS, and I went because that was a recommendation given to all the investments students. All the students by investments, they were given a seminar that they could attend, seeing as it was their future career. And I went and I couldn't even listen to it. Like, people were just talking and the things they were saying, I was yawny, I was sleepy, and I was entirely unhappy. But I went because, I got a network with other prospective, financial services employees like him. I didn't like it. I stopped doing stuff like that, right? Somewhere along the way, I was eventually walking in my calling. I was listening to God now. My ear was on the ground. I started to appropriately choose subjects if I could, right? If I could choose them at school. I was starting to appropriately choose subjects that way. Starting to. And then at that juncture, everything just got taken away from me. I was finally starting to listen. To God and not my beliefs about how life should go. Okay, I was starting to mature, but it was at that stage of maturing in the way that I think that everything was taken. So I really don't know where I would be if I was not sabotaged. But here's the deal. God is sovereign. Nothing is a mistake. Nothing is an error that happens. Nothing is out of whack, no hair out of place where God is concerned. So me saying I don't know where I would be, frankly, is even an irresponsible statement because I serve a sovereign God. We are all under a sovereign God, whether or not we serve him, including the wicked that imagine they're in a position to control and manipulate the outcomes of an ecosystem. My praying to God made me realize that I wanted to enter into management consulting, and my prayer to God also made me realize that I was going to start a firm of that nature in the future. I was going to start a bit of a Deloitte, but I would of course have to garner for myself lots of experience and even pierce into Deloitte, which is why I said earlier that I knew that I was eventually going to break away from corporate South Africa. No, not corporate. I was going to stay in corporate. I was always going to be a suit, but I was going to break away from gainful employment where I was an employee. I was going to break away from subordinate to CEO through starting my own consulting firm. That was something that I was always going to do. But I also knew that this starting of a consulting firm was not going to happen right there in my 20s, and highly unlikely even in my 30s. No, sorry, in my 30s, but no, highly unlikely even in my early 30s. So when I'm like 30, 31, 32, 33. Because at the age of like 27, I was still struggling to get into McKinsey. I knew that after garnering for myself experience and also finally graduating, maybe then I'll get into McKinsey, and then I would have to be there for a couple of years. Network, grab one person on the left, on the right, see who it is that I can talk to, and then, establish a professional working relationship with someone with whom I would likely start this business, right? I knew that was going to be a thing. So I probably was going to start it maybe in my mid to late 30s. So pretty much around a couple of years ago, I would have finally broken into entrepreneurialism. I would have saved up enough money for my startup. I would have poached, headhunted, essentially stolen a couple of people that I would have worked with throughout my career within project management, business analysis, development, etc. Change management. I would have called them on some dude, I'm starting a firm. Please join me. Do you want to join me? Come work for my firm. Leave your company. This is what's going on. If you wanna, I already have a contract with this particular company. Would you be prepared to basically go out on a limb and take a leap of faith with a startup? I was going to work with people that I was going to end up trusting enough. I was going to work with people all throughout my career, including in the consulting firm that I would have ultimately ended up working at, that I was then going to, quite frankly, steal as resources in my company. Okay, that was my plan. But of course, I would have had to work very many years to get that to the place where I wanted it to get. I had a vision, and it was like literally squelched, like stopped dead in its tracks. Today, as a 40-year-old woman, I would be the CEO of my own management consulting firm with my own bunch of project managers, bunch of change managers, bunch of business analysts, bunch of whatnot, that I would have jam-packed and equipped with skills, trained with my heart, right? With the knowledge and the expertise I had, as well as my, in training, when you're a trainer, they say your training style, or when you're a project manager, your project management style, my organizational transformation style. I would have brought that uniquely to the office. Why? Because I am incredibly innovative. I am also incredibly gifted. I am intelligent, and I am very caring as well. I have desire for the improvement and the recovery of people. And in so trying to improve and recover, I innovate. It's the way that I am. So I would have had a competitive advantage that was spiritual that way. I would have been led by God to be so prosperous in flipping organizations. That's what I was born to do. I was born to change organizations, to rescue companies from near death. That's what I finally realized I was supposed to do. Remember, I said that I wanted to get into medicine, but I couldn't do the blood, I couldn't do the squeamishness, I couldn't do the people pain, I couldn't do the death. Biochemistry, I couldn't do the funny little organisms under a microscope. That grossed me out. I couldn't be looking at a specimen for cholera, for crying out loud. I couldn't. But somehow I loved just the ability to learn the workings of, never mind the human body, but the mind, the workings of what it takes for, what makes a person tick. I've always loved that. Diagnostics and recovery, fixing, patching stuff up. That's always been what it is that I'm about. Finding the issue first and foremost, and then fixing it and significantly improving people's lives. But I wanted to be in that kind of space, but without the blood, the gore. I did not want the blood and the gore, because I could never survive the blood and the gore. And I found that kind of career in business, where it is that I could fix people's lives without having to see their blood or understand that they are attending some people's funerals, because I wasn't able to save their lives. I don't want to have to deal with that much human suffering, but I do want to significantly improve the lives of human beings. And that was the perfect space for me. I'd be able to innovate, pioneering solutions for companies that were literally at the brink of death, being forced to get consumed by Pac-Man. Mergers and acquisitions, or people who wanted to buy their companies. Because, dude, what's the point? You're about to die. You're about to die. Let me just buy you. When you're dealing here with an entrepreneur that started this little company of theirs from the age of 17, and now at 27, now at 38, it appears things are falling apart and their heart is bleeding and they want to recover, but they've been taken over by many big shocks in the market, or they've the desire for their product, the demand for their product is no longer so lofty. What a fish paste. I wanted to basically be like Superman or Supergirl rocking up to rescue that day. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to save unsavable businesses. I wanted to rescue unrescuable people. I wanted to salvage unsalvageable folk. I wanted to bring a heartbeat back to companies that thought they had to sell and then gave me a chance, give me 6 months, and me flip that to a point where now they would have to retract even the sale. I wanted to be the kind of resource that would enable a sole proprietor whose business did really well, but in the absence of them going public, if they go public, they would have to basically close shop because there's just too much investment financially involved in it. I wanted to be able to make it possible for such a person as this, or a family business like this, to not have to go public because of the risks that come with going public. That one day a whole board of directors can make a decision that the founder, I saw it happen at MTN, it was very heartbreaking. One day some board of directors making a decision to get rid of you because either you're getting old or you're not quite what we need anymore, you know? You're not quite the taste or the edge of the company being bought out of a baby you built. Like, there are people who start family businesses and then they go public, and once they go public, shareholders can boot them out. They can literally get rid of a company CEO that built this Karabo Pinar, thank you, I was looking for the name. It happened to Karabo Pinar at MTN. And it broke my heart. I'm emotional just thinking about it. He was ultimately made the CEO of MTN SA, but there came a time when they were like, you gotta go. Karabo was one of the founders of MTN. He was there when everybody was in the blood, sweat, and tears phase, building it from the ground up, and somewhere along the way, he became obsolete to MTN. He became obsolete. I mean, when you have started something, you know the level of bitterness that can cause in a person. When you have started something and it was your baby, you built it in your parents' garage, you are Steve Jobs, and then one day somebody decides that you're too old or you are not innovative enough, and they bring in some random that has not done the time, has not seen the flames that you saw, and they are there apparently to much better able to flip around that organization. I wanted to be able to come into the picture and enable a person that is facing that kind of severity of loss to just not have to endure it, to not have to go public because I somehow turned it around, that you can keep this literally within the family business. Or if you do go public, for you to not end up like Karabo Pinar, just thrown away because you got old or you got too whatever, you know? It was just not quite the feel or the touch of what we're looking for. This place is brutal. Corporate is brutal. The business place is brutal. It has no care for human beings. That's not how God is. The Lord cares for the thing that slapped upside the head Karabo Pinar. The Lord cares, y'all. Like, literally, Jesus hates unsavory business practices. He hates brutality. He hates tactless ransacking of people. He hates the pulling from underneath people's feet of rags. Like, it's written in God's word, if anybody does not want to work, let them not eat. God has a thing about fairness, okay? So if you put in the work and you're still not eating, of course, then that is an abomination to him. It's an abomination. Business managers, leaders, CEOs having to walk out of their own companies with a big fat chunky buyout, sit at home and retire by force because people said so. Because people said so. Yeah, God hates that. Y'all need to understand, Christians chilling in corporate South Africa or corporate wherever you may find yourself, there are things that God hates. There are principles that are biblical, that are being ignored by the body of Christ, that are presently being practiced in the organizations where you work, and you think that this is just business. It's a brutal game. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Essentially, I had a value proposition to men and women like Karabo Pinar, businesses like those, startup businesses that don't want to go public, or successful small little family businesses that want to expand, want to grow, but without going public. I wanted to be able to enable companies like these to basically keep it in the family, so that no random backstabbing by some saboteur from the outside flying in as a pestilence, a virus, a bacteria, coursing through the veins of a family's heritage, taking it because you went public. You had to have seen this coming. I wanted to help companies like those, but I was never going to get there unless I first worked for a consulting firm, established my own business model, and then poached some resources right off the floors of corporate South Africa, and us go and become a dream team. I wanted to create a dream team, and I imagined that my future husband was likely in that dream team, but I didn't get to do that. It was my heart that mattered, do you understand? I was a Christian and I was going to help South Africa's economy in a very godly way. I was going to care about things that people don't care about, like the fact that this here has been in the family for 20 years. People don't care about that, but you see, God cares about every last one. It's written that cast your burdens upon the Lord, and because he cares for you. God cares about that which brutal businessmen and women that are cold don't care about. And I wanted to be that difference. I wanted to be that difference. And then that was ripped from underneath my feet. So you took away my opportunity to salvage unhappy entrepreneurs that were facing shutting down of their businesses. Basically I was going to be a suicide prevention consulting firm. The kind of firm that would cause a man that would have ended his life because all of his life's work is now going down the drain because of some merger and acquisition. I was going to bring them back from that. It was all about Jesus. It was about God. It was about his passion for hard labor. It was about caring that people should not just lose what they've worked hard on. It was about helping businesses thrive and survive that were struggling to get started. I wanted to be that difference. I wanted to be a doctor, but I couldn't be one, but I could be a corporate one. I could be a financial doctor. I could be a business doctor. Thank you. I could be a general practitioner for brick and mortar structures that you call companies and the people they're in. I was going to be a doctor without the blood. I was going to be a caretaker without the fatalities, without having to deal with gross looking microorganisms under a microscope. I was going to be a biochemist. I was going to manufacture medicines that heal people, bring them from the precipice of death, but without having to deal with microorganisms. I was going to be a management consulting firm with a dream team. That's what I was going to do. And then it was just taken away. And now I am a 40-year-old woman with a lot of intelligence, a lot of giftedness, a lot of passion, sitting here being offered stupid admin jobs by deadbeat randos that sabotaged my career and now are trying to get me to settle or even apologize to them for continuing to do that which has always been my call in God, helping people, giving them pioneering solutions that nobody else was able to, because I have an ear for diagnosis. I have a heart and an eye for diagnosis. I have a way about identifying root causes of people's issues. And I do that in my ministry every single day. I do that in my ministry. I diagnose problems. I am like a pathologist. Just not the kind that deals with blood and samples and petri dishes and specimens. Just not that kind. Just the kind that is very pragmatic in what's going on with the human mind. Remember, I said that psychologists are like these unsung theists. Yeah, I was right about the half-hearted nature of psychology. I took it all the way to the end. His name is Jesus. I got saved. I found Christ, and he finished the half-open loop of psychology. He made me realize that my interest in the mind and how people think and how to fix them and how to help them, how to counsel them. Yeah, it's not enough if there's no God involved. It's not enough if there's no God. If anything, it worked. I remember when after breaking up with my ex-boyfriend, I was all bereft and sad. And then some colleague of mine recommended I go see this a Christian therapist if I want to talk about it. I went. I did not know this woman. What do you call this? Of course I didn't know the woman, but I didn't know Christ at the time. I wasn't born again. But I was prepared to say that I'm Christian. I mean, what's it gonna hurt? I was prepared to say I'm Christian. What's it gonna hurt? So I took this chick's recommendation. I called this particular therapist. I went and I sat with her, and she low-key evangelized me. She was one of the people that planted seeds. I had been to therapists before. When I was 21, I was suicidal. And my mom took me to a shrink, some lady in Durban that tried to counsel me, but it just nothing worked. It just felt empty. It was vacuous. I also went to see a therapist when I was working at MTN. I was going through a lot, kochaye and whatnot, and I decided to go and see some secular therapist to talk about it, and she was so fluffy. It was so fluffy. So do you want to talk about it? Explain. I couldn't. But that one, the one after my boyfriend, the one that was a participant in the glory of God in my redemption, she was used as a vessel. She used the Bible. She counseled me in God. She counseled me in Christ, and she gave me an assignment to go home and do that. She said that go and read the Bible and then come back and tell next time in the session that you come back to next time, you must have an answer as to who you think you are in God's eyes after reading the Bible. I did that assignment, and it was just so healing. She actually healed my heart. And I was broken up with my ex. That was the thing that made me go to her, right? And she gave me her testimony as to how she met her husband, how she ended up married. She was a Christian woman that was a shrink, a therapist. And she gave me a whole story about how it is that she was single for 4 years At the time, I was only single now. At that stage, maybe like 4, 5, 6 months. And the prospect of waiting 4 years, yes, like it for you, I felt like I am getting older. I'm not getting any younger. My ex and I broke up when I was about 26. I was like, I'm not waiting until I'm 30. What? But this woman was like, sit down, listen. And I listened to her story, and by the time I left there, I was teary-eyed. She spoke about how she waited and prayed and waited and prayed and waited and prayed, and a couple of guys came and went, but it just did not sit right until finally she met her husband. Gave me the whole story, gave me a whole testimony. The whole therapist session was basically about her testimony and how it is that God brought her together, and it was so inspirational. It was so inspirational that I healed from my ex. I realized that what is in the past is in the past, and God has something so much better for me. Because look, my shrink has a beautiful husband, a wonderful man that made an honest woman out of her. And she waited, and she was celibate, and it worked. She inspired me on a journey to celibacy. I can't say that she evangelized me. I can't really say that because it was a lot of people, a few sources of planting seeds that ultimately got me to a place of conviction that I need to look at Jesus now. And this woman, shrink lady, helped along. So that whole therapy sessions, there was a couple of them with that colored lady, it confirmed to me that I was right about psychology. It was onto something. It was totally onto something, but it was missing something. And only one therapist in my life has ever actually succeeded to heal me. Only one. And it was the one that used the Bible. The one that used the word of God. The one that gave me an assignment to go and read the scriptures and come back and tell her who I think I am in God's eyes. She was the only shrink that worked. Before then, I'd seen some shrinks that made me roll my eyes and squint. And afterwards too, I saw one that was like, ugh, she wasn't giving. She wasn't giving. So long story short, God helped me understand what it is that was the missing hole. Humanity, it is God. That vacuous hole in your hearts is God. That you know that you need to sit in front of somebody and talk. They're not wrong, these shrinks. They are onto something. You have diagnosed diseases, illnesses, mental illnesses. You've called them schizophrenia. You have called them a neurosis. You have called them, you get my point, all right? Yeah. You have called them post-traumatic stress. You have called them confabulation. You've given them names. You've called people's relationship issues, attachment styles, anxious, ambivalent. You have called them ones who are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. You've come up with it all. And even though it's not listed in medical journals or psychology journals, narcissistic personality disorder, you've given it a name. But when you add Jesus, when you basically go to God Almighty, you close the loop of emptiness, that vacuous hole. When you sit in front of a person and you talk about life, when you don't add God, you don't get a solution. You just leave there worse than you started. You leave there still empty, but now you've shared your deepest, wildest secrets with some stranger. But if that stranger gives you the love of God, you will feel like it was a friend. And I felt like that therapist lady was a friend.